Alrighty, hey everybody hope everybody's doing well today. Just wanted to share some updates about what's really going on. Hope everybody had a pretty good 4th of July. I had a pretty splendid time. I just wasn't able to upload the clips and what I went through. First of all, I checked out the Boulder City Parade. I must say, pretty homogenous gathering. If you know the kinds of people that go to Boulder City, lots and lots of crowds, lack of parking. Certainly, I really like the water splash events, not to mention the layout and the character, the charm of the city. And I just really wish that more and more places in the Las Vegas Valley would look more like Boulder City, even though there are some things that it could have been done better. But nevertheless, certainly newer areas just don't have the charm that Boulder City has. Yeah, just remember what that holiday is about and what we really fought for. The financial system, tyranny, and how we could really use another independence again. Now, as far as fireworks is concerned, I did see the MSG sphere with the fireworks along the strip downtown in Green Valley with a couple of my buddies. It was pretty nice. Fireworks shows, there's just so much to do, so much to look at here in the Las Vegas Valley. So if you really want to look around next year, go ahead, do so. Next year, I'm probably thinking about going to Lake Las Vegas. There's just so many issues I have to talk about. I know it's been a while since I haven't uploaded a video. I just wanted to make some updates while the time is here. There is a mess in the Clark County Republican Party. There's no question about it. But before I get to that, the MSG sphere just lit up. It was very nice. It added so much value, so much lights. I'll have some more videos about that. The thing is, it is owned by the Venetian, and I made a video about my unpleasant experience at the Venetian. So we'll see how that turns out. Again, it's a lot of money that they had to build, but I think we're really starting to see the stadiums, Resorts World, Circa, a lot of these other properties, even the Palms. Las Vegas is just getting a lot of visual slides and everything else. And I know there's a lot of lights, there's a lot I like about it, but it's just really making the sky so bright at night and makes you think about visual pollution. But we'll see how that really turns out. Now, as far as the CCRP concern is, look, I've heard a lot of horrible things about, first of all, the GOP chairman, Michael McDonald, and even, of course, the county chair, Jesse Law, which is, of course, one of the reasons why we should break up Clark County. And there's ties that he has with Ross Miller, with a firm. It's just really shady, but I don't know exactly what's going on. I've met those two people, I've spoken to them many times, seem like very sincere people. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I can tell you this. I don't know who to trust. There's some friends I have that don't like either of them. There's a couple of my friends that are okay with Jesse Law. I think one of them was able to be given a spot in how to help candidates gear up on the issues, to fundraise and everything. Because, again, you can't just blame, the elections are messed up, forget about them. A lot of these candidates, they don't do a really good job in getting their voice out to the voters and really making a difference. And people just don't see that from Jesse Law and Michael McDonald, not to mention all the scandals. Michael McDonald is a tremendous FBI investigation. But anyway, speaking of all that, the CCRP is going to be having an election. Again, I don't know who to trust. I'm just going to probably go there and watch the freak show, but whatever it is, I'm going to be doing what I can to make sure that non-establishment candidates get in. That is very important. By the way, President Trump is scheduled to visit Fervent Church this Saturday, in case if you guys want to check it out. I might check it out. Hopefully I'll have the time to really do so. Speaking of corruption, a lot of shady things happening in this town. I'm not happy that Venetian Palazzo just allowed the Culinary Union to get in. Really makes me think about how all the horrible things the Culinary Union done, the politicians that they've supported, the policies that they did. Remember the last 3 years, several decades, Harry Reid It makes you think that the Fertilla brothers, I don't know how to pronounce that, is somebody that we can rely on, depend on, station casinos. Maybe that's why they got rid of some of their properties not too long ago. But it also gives me second thoughts about Sheldon Adelson and how many people did not like him, not only because he would just pump a lot of money to the Republicans, but he was pumping to the candidates that the Culinary Union, the pro-establishment, as it seems, do not really like. And so we have to make sure, now, of course, the members are not our enemies, but their management, their ability to use non-whites, immigrants, particularly non-citizens, and I'm pretty certain illegals have some way in helping them to pump these corrupt politicians and we get all these horrible policies. It's just a way to basically create a machine so we get these bad laws, horrible policies, we get these higher taxes, and the list goes on. And of course, one of the laws that we could use is immigration policies that's been done in Florida and Kansas that basically is pushing back against the tide and the wave of illegal aliens. That's something we really need to keep in mind. And of course, it's no coincidence that right now, many Democrats, including one of the people who is running, Kennedy, and I've done a lot of videos about Culinary, I got to tell you that. And I don't think they'll support him. Kennedy, he's just not part of the establishment. Kennedy's speaking out against open borders, the anchor babies. And of course, many of these anchor babies become lawyers, voters, and politicians like we had Selena Torres. I've talked about them. I've talked about how Culinary Union has threatened to sue me, censored me, and all this other nonsense, which, by the way, the censoring is now backfiring. You know, my channel has been under risk for so many times. It's just sickening. Now, I do like Kennedy. He seems to be a non-establishment person, even though some of his relatives, like Ted Kennedy, pushed the 65 and the 90 Immigration Act, the Hart-Celler Act, which I think was one of the worst laws ever to be enacted. And by the way, some of my relatives did come to America before Hart-Celler. So it's not like, you know, all immigration, even if the law didn't get passed, it would have been almost all European. There were still non-Europeans coming in, although I'm not like any other non-European. You know, you look at us, we're pretty much European in many ways. However, that law was just a horrible law in so many ways, and I'm really concerned about supporting Kennedy, but I do agree with him about COVID. I do agree with him with immigration, about the financial system, the growing income inequality, and there's some issues that I'm pretty neutral. Of course, I would choose him over Biden, and it's interesting to see how these so-called people like Bernie Sanders and Warren does not endorse Kennedy. That really makes you see what's really going on. And we'll see if the Democrats here in this state will support him. But I will try to likely go to his events, help out with his campaign and everything, because I know that, remember, our goal is not just really to get people by ideology more so or which party. We have to get people who are non-establishment. And we know the establishment doesn't seem to be a fan of Kennedy, and we'll see how he'll do in his primary. Now, if I can make a guess, I think it's just going to be another repeat of Ted Kennedy in 1980, where he lost the primary to Jimmy Carter. And no, it doesn't seem like Jimmy Carter will have some kind of epic defeat if whoever becomes the establishment Democrat nominee next year. And I just don't see, I don't want to say his name. He's going to be the nominee in 24. It's just not going to happen. I mean, we're just seeing Ukraine, COVID, immigration. And yes, even though inflation is coming down, economic problems, some of them are not getting better. In fact, just because we get deflation, we could still have growing unemployment. There's just no question about it. Absolutely. It's just really sickening. And of course, speaking of the economy, I think the stock market, there's a pretty good chance it's going to be juiced up. The NASDAQ had a really good the first half of 2023. I expect that that's going to continue unless we see some really tragic, unexpected event. We're going to see the markets continue to go higher. You look at the PE ratios, you look at how bearish 2022 was, and we're going to see this thing really start to get pumped up. I think the earnings report is looking pretty decent. The question is, will the housing market continue to decline, and will that really affect the broader economy? I think that will take several months to really continue. But we're seeing the stock market, the tech stocks really start to rebound. And that's some pretty delighted news. Not to mention the interest rate increases, the pressure on them are really starting to ebb down as well. The bond yields doesn't look like they're rising as fast as they used to be. We'll really see how that will all turn out. But then again, NASDAQ has still quite a bit of way to go, along with many other major stocks, especially in the technology sector, to basically hit their all-time highs. Now, I want to talk about some other topics, is that now Latinos, just like California, are the largest group over whites in Texas. And I know some people are concerned about that because of voting habits, a lot of different things. There is some signs that, and a lot of recent data showing that they are shifting. However, the real concern to me is really the culture. You know, if you just recklessly import people from not so successful societies into more successful societies, you're going to get the more unsuccessful realities. That's just how it is. We have to do it responsibly. Now, remember, it's not just immigration. There's birth rates. There's interracial marriages. And I've talked about many times how I'm seeing this trend with a lot of non-black women with black men. And the question is, are they doing this because obviously they believe this is going to work out for them, or the establishment media is kind of telling them, okay, this is the way you should live your life? And this is really concerning. But we have to look at this from a cultural perspective, because we know that certain races and ethnicities bring certain types of culture. And we don't want to lose that culture. We don't want to see the Anglo-Saxon Nordic influence in Texas being wiped out. It impacts like what kind of social life you have, what kind of traditions you carry, what kind of values you have. All these things definitely matter. And not to mention, I believe that we should know what the demographic future is definitely going to be. And I don't think it's hateful at all, honestly. Think about it. Now, of course, the Latinos in Texas, they differ from other parts of the country. Many of them are Tejanos, just like the Latinos in Florida. They may come from parts of the Caribbean and South America, and you see how they have a different, really, voting habits. But really, I'm not too concerned about the voting habits, because particularly the fact that the Democratic Party is just really in disarray right now. You look at Hunter Biden, you look at Joe Biden, they're just going downhill with their crimes, with their illegal activities, and we're seeing the truth coming out about the events of the last 3 years, just so much. And it's just going to get so bad. Like, I understand there's going to be a difference between the immigrant vote and the non-immigrant vote and different type of racial categories, but if the Democrats are just going to get so out of hand, so out of control, it will get to the point where, listen, honestly, like, it's really not going to matter to the point that a lot of those other groups are not going to be enthusiastic voting for them. They're going to lose their key demographic voters, because I think these people at least have a brain to realize that they've gone so out of control, these people, these puppets, these installed people, whatever you want to call them, that they have some sanity to think that it's not worth it for them. And of course, they're doing a lot of things to basically pump their voter base. We know that one of the things that they're trying to do is trying to forgive student loans. Now, I understand these loan balances are high, and you can do some changes to the loans, but you have to pay back for the loans that you got. Now, I know there are some loans that people didn't pay back, during the last 3 years events. I get that. Okay, we have to be fair, though. I mean, if you were reckless, you have to essentially take responsibility. That's just what it is. Now, you can argue the loans are too high, the interest payments are out of control. Yeah, we can make some changes. But you can't just be this spoiled brat and just do whatever you want. And I understand the tuitions are high, but so we can make some changes. But what the Supreme Court struck down, which, by the way, I'm pretty excited that affirmative action is gone, because I've talked about this for many, many years. And of course, many of the guests I've interviewed on this channel, they're pretty excited about this too. However, keep in mind that affirmative action doesn't favor people like me. The Persians don't get affirmative action. We're not underprivileged. It's funny how they give it to Latinos, but Latinos didn't go through the same experiences that blacks did. See how this really doesn't make sense? But the thing about student loans, because this is all very well interconnected, and by the way, those two issues the Supreme Court went over, they disproportionately affect women, because we see affirmative action quotas being pushed, and they're going to find other ways to get around, which I don't think they'll succeed. But women have been pushed in workplaces, universities, all in the name of, yeah, they got to have careers. And we know the decades of doing that, all the unintended consequences, how their decisions on focusing on the corporate ladder when it comes to dating irresponsibly, not being wife material. Of course, this goes to the birth control and has relation to the abortion issue. A lot of this is based on pushing women for agendas and female irresponsibility, because we know the student loans are disproportionately affecting women. But it's funny because we wanted to elevate women into careers thinking that we're going to improve their lives. But unfortunately, it's not working. They're saddled in debt. A lot of people don't want to marry them. And the thing is that, are they really going to school and learning concepts that's essentially going to help them in the real world? What are they teaching them? We see the effects in our society, in our culture, in the voting habits. And when they do get a job, do they really need to spend all those years in school? No. Many times they can just get some training on the job for 2 years, 3 years, or they can go for another career choice that only needs 2-3 years, like hairdressing, manicuring, you name it. Or just working a low-level desk job and moving up. See, and again, this is one of the reasons why they're having issues with dating, building a family, and everything else. This has an effect on every aspect of society, not to mention the disproportionate number compared to decades ago, who are basically single moms for not making responsible decisions. I feel like our society has encouraged female irresponsibility. Now, again, I'm not trying to just point out that the men in our society are perfect. Yeah, they do need lots of improvement. However, we have to keep in mind that you have to look at the underlying root causes of this issue. As far as student loans concerned, look, the bottom line is like we have Joe Biden trying to forgive student loans, but yet he was a senator for decades. He was behind the credit card schemes, not to mention he was vice president for 8 years. And what has he done to lower tuition rates? That's the thing. So a lot of these problems stem from those guys and the administrations prior to that. Remember, we had relatively affordable tuition. Just go back. This comes with every other issue: healthcare, guns, you name it. Just go back to when things were different, when things were much better, and look at what the policies have changed. So when it comes to student loans and colleges, look at what we had in the 1970s and see what has changed. Now, for one thing, the demand for going to college wasn't so high because we had a lot of well-paying jobs that didn't require a college degree. Of course, we know a lot of those jobs are not in this part of the world. They're being done in overseas. And a lot of that has a lot to do with it. It's harder than ever to start a small business. All these things that really, really matter. Now, of course, employers are starting to rethink the college degree requirement, but I think there's more that really, really needs to be done. Not to mention, a lot of students after high school, they don't even know what they want to do. High schools need to prepare people for the real world. Not to mention, almost everything I learned in my life doesn't even come from the classroom. It comes from independent analysis. And I've learned a lot since doing this YouTube channel since 2011, just months after I graduated high school. really the student loan crisis, there needs to be accountability after this, because you can lower the tuition amount, but you have to pay back because you took the loan, and you can't just basically take advantage of the system and walk away. Now, last but not least, I want to finish off with the fact that MGM Resorts did an article, and they talked about how, this new CEO, Hornbuckle, this guy who supposedly replaced Jim Murren in February of 2020. Of course, we know what happened after February of 2020, and he got part of the Sizzlack team. And by the way, I'll do another video about Lombardo very, very soon. So, which I have a mixed view of Lombardo. I mean, I appreciate he's done a lot of vetoes, but I think he could have done a lot more. And I'll interview some people to discuss about that. But this Hornbuckle guy, which I've met in person as well as Jim Murren, and I have a short about asking about the tragic event that happened in Mandalay. He talks about how there's just back-to-back traffic in the 15 heading back to California. And he's like, yeah, a lot of my visitors are unsatisfied. Well, like, listen, if you really want to satisfy your visitors, if I was in your shoes, for God's sakes, I would get rid of the paid parking, because it was your hotel, it was your establishment that started the paid parking BS back in 2016, which has created a lot of frustration, by the way. I think if you were to get rid of that and bring back complimentary valet, especially during the weekdays, or especially when there's not a special event, because this is one of the issues I have with these sports stadiums, is that it encouraged more nickel and diming going on. But if you can bring that free parking back, or at least we can just break up MGM and Caesars for God's sakes, well, I think your customers are going to be satisfied. And if you were to build more hotels, since you haven't built a hotel since 2009 with the Aria City Center, you were able to expand your services, lower your prices, and your customers would be satisfied. But of course, I think the problem with Vegas, this is what my mom says, is that there's just more politics. Not just in the Clark County Commission or Carson City, but just in the Strip. Just so much drama, just so much nickel and diming, and people are fed up with it. But what's not being talked about is that the customer base has changed. You have more of the younger pool crowd, which these were the kinds of people that used to get married sooner, and now they just want to go there and get attention. And then you've got the sports crowd, and you've got the international crowd. So it has changed a lot. That's the problem. And they know if they can nickel and dime and get away with it. But speaking about the traffic on the 15th freeway, look, one of the reasons why you have that is because you really don't have alternative routes. You don't have scattered small towns across America. Now, there really is an alternative route. I mean, you can go down the Highway 95. I've taken that. And then you can get on the Highway 164 from Searchlight and then go through back to the 15th freeway. It is possible. There is somewhat of an alternative route. But nevertheless, there isn't really much of an alternative route when you're trying to get to, let's say, from Prim all the way to Barstow. We don't have much of an alternative route. So a lot of times when, let's say, if a truck explodes, which ironically near Baker, you had two trucks explode in both directions around in the same location, ironically, you're basically screwed. But the question is, why haven't these MGM executives, since they had so much lobbying power, all these donors, why didn't they push the people like Harry Reid and all these people to do something about it? Think about it. And Harry Reid, they were good friends with the California establishment, Caltrans. They could have done something about it. Instead, they do all this money laundering, high public employee unions and pensions and salaries, you name it, and really nothing gets done, as a matter of fact. It's pretty sad. They could have built a high-speed train a lot sooner, which I'm pretty confident they're going to break ground very soon. But see, you got to understand, when it comes to the culinaries, when it comes to MGM, these people have to have accountability for the problems that we're in now. Like Culinary is pushing for lottery, which I'm not against, and they want to raise money, but we were told many times we need the marijuana, we need all these different new revenue streams to raise money, and what has that done? Are our schools better? No. It's an absolute disaster. It's a joke. It's a sham. And now they're talking about it. Well, what is your track record in making a difference out of it? Well, you can make a difference because in July 10th, Transform Clark County or something like that. They're having a town hall meeting on July 10th, so they're going to be updating the codes. It's very important to me because I want to build my projects here. I'm gearing up my investments, so we have to get rid of parking minimums. We've got to make our cities more traditional. And we'll really see how that will turn out. But anyway, I'm going to be answering some questions you've talked about. Hey, Cyrus, what's up, buddy? The government shouldn't be guaranteeing student loans. Look, as far as that's concerned, I believe we should just go back to what we had in the 1970s. More good-paying jobs without college degrees, a policy where tuition rates were lower, a policy where there were alternatives to a four-year college degree, skills or certificates or whatever you can do. But I know this is a very taboo subject, but I also wanted a society where people don't see, particularly women, being a stay-at-home mom as a taboo, really. Because it's important, yes, to have skills or whatever in case if your husband can't provide. But having the mentality to think that you want to be a stay-at-home mom and raise children rather than going to college or just getting lots of attention and doing other things in your 20s, dating irresponsibly, that should not be a taboo, really. It should not be something where you throw that idea out of the window in your 20s. And I think if we were to not make that a taboo again, if we were to make men earn enough income to support a family, which you need about $70,000, $80,000 to do that here in Las Vegas, which makes you think, well, I think women should have that as a standard if they're able to be wife material. Then we can make that happen, and we'd have less demand for colleges. Not to mention, we have a lot of foreigners who are coming into these colleges and universities, and that, just like with housing too, which I'll do another video about that, which is pumping up prices, depending on where you're at. So how big is the black population in Las Vegas? Look, I've heard many reports that the black population is flat. I've heard many reports the black population is growing, actually. I got to tell you that, when you think about it, a lot of them cannot afford California and other states. They're moving here. We've got black immigrants that have come here, although it's now questionable because the taxi and limo sector has been struggling. A lot of them have been working those jobs. We'll have to really, really see. But as far as I know, it doesn't seem like there's a surge to the point that what many of the Rust Belt cities in the Northeast were going through, particularly in the first half of the 20th century. And it's okay to criticize these people. If you don't like them, that's fine. Absolutely. I mean, people of my ethnicity, I don't know any Persian that actually lives in a majority black neighborhood. I just don't. I mean, I've met some that live in majority Hispanic or Asian neighborhoods. Blacks, it's just not the thing, man. It's just not. Actually, believe it or not, our black percentage here in Nevada is actually comparable to Saudi Arabia, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that. They're both desert areas, relatively. Yeah. So, but unlike, of course, Saudi Arabia, Nevada never really had slaves, but they want to take that out of the Constitution. Like, give me a break. And then they want Juneteenth and all these other things. It's just really interesting. So, anyway, what do you guys think? I gotta go. I'll update you guys soon. Thank you guys so much. I will see you. I'll make some updates, videos, interviews if you like. Bye, y'all.